What's up guys, ATCG here, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day, and today we're profiling the Blue Eyes version of the deck that I think most people enjoy playing because it's so fun to OTK with this card, Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon. It's one of the monsters that ever since the movie got released, a lot of people were excited about. It's a card basically very similar to Dragoon of Red Eyes, but instead of being the controlled version, it's the OTK version. And I'm going to show you a very spicy way to OTK with this deck that I found by using a couple of unorthodox cards. It's not the most consistent way to actually play this deck, but it's definitely very fun for me. And I will show you exactly what I'm talking about once I get to the deck profile. So now, before we begin, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos. If you enjoy the video, give it a like, comment down below which decks you want to see next. And now, let's begin. So first of all, we have the 3 Chaos Max Dragon, obviously, the heart and soul of the deck. You can ritual summon this with either Advanced Ritual Art or your Chaos form, it's searchable. And it cannot be destroyed by card effects, it can't be targeted by card effects, and when it attacks a defense position monster, it deals double piercing damage. So that's basically the easiest way to OTK ever. So you just need your opponent to have a monster with 0 defense, and that's exactly OTK, and I'm going to show you how you can actually do this very consistently with this deck. Moving on, 3 Blue Eyes. Of course, you need to play the OG Blue Eyes in the deck because it's the tribute fodder for your Chaos Max, and it also gives you some utility with the rest of the deck. One alternative, in a normal Blue Eyes build, you would definitely play 3 alternative because you need to, for the free special summon, to go for your synchro plays, but not in this one, just one because it's searchable, because sometimes you need to search it to have spot removal, like in some certain scenarios, because it's always a free special if you search the Blue Eyes or you already have the Blue Eyes, but you could kind of break with more copies. I think just one is perfectly fine. Now, the power monster of the deck, which is not the most consistent way to play, but I think it's the most power play, there is a Zaborg. If you want to make it more consistent, you replace this with Manju. That's perfectly fine. But I think weak decks need kind of a super win condition in order to be able to win consistently against the stronger decks. And this is just what Zaborg gives, because Zaborg is good going first and going second, while Manju going first doesn't give you that much, because the deck, of course, wants to blind second, but if your opponent catches up to what you're trying to do and they make you go first, then there's not so much you can do. But with Zaborg, if you can destroy their extra deck when going first and they're playing an extra deck reliant deck, that's basically game. And of course, unlike Manju, it gives you multiple searches and can also give you multiple pops depending on what you have in the extra deck. So that's why I think Zaborg is much more powerful than Manju, and it gives you an extra win condition in the deck, which decks like these really need. The only downside to Zaborg is that you're forced to play a lot of Impcantations, so let's go to them right now. So I play 2 Talismandra, you reveal a ritual monster, and when it's special summon from the deck, you search for a ritual monster, 2 Candle, reveal spell, summon from the deck, search spell, and now for the 3 ofs, I play 3 Bookstone. The reason you play 3 of these is because these are the ones you want to draw, because when they summon from the deck, they don't do much, especially not during the early game, because these recycle from the grave. Bookstone, you can reveal a spell and get a spell back from the grave when specials from the deck. But the reason because you play more of these is because you want to use them on the hand and special summon Candle and Talismandra from the deck, so you don't want to draw Candle and Talismandra without the others, because that wouldn't give you the appropriate search you need. So that's why 3 Bookstone is more important. And same thing with 3 Pensiplume. This reveals a monster and gets monster brought from the grave when summoned from the deck. And again, you play 3 because you want to summon this from the hand and get Candle and Talismandra from the deck, so you can have the most consistent way to get to your plays. And I do not run Chalice Slime because Chalice Slime, while being more consistent than playing any of these, gives you only 1 monster on the field, so you won't have the 2 tributes needed for Zaborg. If you're playing Manju instead of Zaborg, then I suggest cutting a Pensiplume and a Bookstone for 2 Chalice Slimes, or maybe possibly even 3 if you feel like it. But because I play Zaborg, I need to hard draw one of the actual Incantations so I can get 2 monsters on the field, so I can get Zaborg out. So that's why I think playing just the original the rituals is actually better than playing Chalice Slime in this specific version. Now let's go to the spells. Of course, 3 Advanced Ritual Art. You send your normal Blue Eyes from the deck to the grave and you special summon your Chaos Max. With this deck, it's very easy. to get multiple Chaos Max on the field. And even if you cannot OTK, it's not easy to deal with one Chaos Max or maybe even two, because there are some decks that do not have an out to a card like this where it can be targeted or be destroyed by card effects. They have to do some really weird extra deck plays in order to get rid of it and have to use a lot of resources, and that's why even when you cannot OTK, it's still fine because you will most likely get a turn back to possibly OTK your opponent during the next turn. To Chaos Form, I don't think maxing out a Chaos Form is necessary because it's a card that requires 2 cards in order to be able to use, especially during the early game, because yes, if you've used an Advanced Ritual Art and you've sent a Blue Eyes to the grave, then yes, it's free, but if you don't have the Advanced Ritual Art, then you would need this Chaos Max and a Blue Eyes in order to be able to summon your Chaos Max. So I think it can be a little bit more bricky during the early game than Advanced Ritual Art, and that's why I think maxing out on Advanced Ritual Art and not on Chaos Form is actually the most efficient way to do it. 3 Melody of the Awakening Dragon, basically searching your Chaos Max whenever you need it, but it can also search your Blue Eyes and your alternative if you need to deal with a monster before you try to commit to the OTK with a Chaos Max. 3 Trade-in, I would replace this with Extravagance if you have access to Extravagance, but if you don't, because it's still a very expensive card, very powerful but very expensive, and it doesn't have a reprint in the near horizon, we'll have to wait until July to get that. I think trade-in is the next best thing you can do, and Zaborg actually makes trade-in more consistent than a Manju would, because Zaborg is a level 8, so if you have multiple copies or if you have a copy that you cannot summon, then you can discard for trade-in and try to dig for something good. You also have your Melody, searching your level 8, so you have like 13 level 8s in the deck, and you can basically discard redundant copies of Blue Eyes or your Chaos Max to try to dig for something good. 3 Call By, you need your plays to go through, especially now that Droll is in the meta. Droll can destroy this deck because you have so much searching with all your Incantations, your Melody, your trade-in. You really need your plays to go through, and sometimes even an Ash on Advanced Ritual Art can basically end your turn, so I think 3 Call By is really good to make sure your plays go through so you can actually OTK. And now for the spicy part of the deck, these 2 cards, I don't think they're the most consistent way to play the deck because they can sometimes be a little bit bricky. But if you have a way to instantly end the game when you can, it's similar to Utopia Double, where you add the double or nothing brick in your deck, but you have a way to OTK your opponent immediately if you come up with a correct scenario. These 2 cards are basically what I'm talking about. First of all, 3 creature swap. The basic idea is to give one of your Incantations to your opponent so they can have a monster with 0 defense, but they don't do just that. They also deal with an opponent's problem because they're forced to give you one of their monsters. Yes, they get to choose which one they give you, but still, if they're playing a deck like with full of useful monsters and they don't have anything they don't want on the field, then can basically give it to you and still have an extra monster on the field. So that's why you can OTK very easily with Chaos Max, because you don't rely on your opponent to have something on the field in defense mode, especially with all those Link monsters going around. Sometimes Chaos Max second effect with double piercing is completely irrelevant, so that's why you need to make sure you don't rely on your opponent to be able to use your win condition. And the next card is a possibly better version, because it doesn't rely on your opponent giving you a monster. I play 3 Mystic Box. This gives one of your monsters to your opponent, but it also spots removal destroys one of your opponent's monsters, and you're the one who chooses which monster you get to get rid of, so that's why it's a little bit better than Creature Swap, because your opponent doesn't choose which monster they will lose. You are the one who destroys a monster, so you basically destroy any problematic monster on the field, and you give them an Incantation. And your opponent kind of has to negate these, because if they let the Incantation resolve and you have them on the field, then they basically will be forced to negate these if they don't want to lose their monsters. So as long as you have a monster to give to your opponent, then you can basically deal with problems. And that's why this is actually a really fun way to play the deck, because not only does it give you removal, but it also gives you a way to make your win condition much more consistent. So I think these cards are really good. If you want to replace them with anything to make it more consistent, you can play more Searchers, you can play more Ritual spells to get to your Chaos Max, or you can actually play a little bit of a normal Blue Eyes package with some stones, a Sage. But I think if you want to commit to Chaos Max, this is what you should actually be playing in your deck. Now for the extra deck is not as relevant. It's mostly discards for Zaborg, which you need them because you need to be able to send something good to be able to get some advantage, and some monsters that could possibly come up in case you have entered the grind game and you have some level 8s on the field. I don't play any links. I don't think you can summon any links in this deck and actually be able to plus with them, especially with the Incantations locking you out of your extra deck. It won't happen. It just won't happen. So the extra deck have 3 Herald of the Arclight, of course. You send them with your Zaborg and you get 3 searches. If you're playing Extravagance, then in some scenarios, yes, you will lose some of those extra deck cards, but I think the power that Extravagance gives you, while not relying on you having a level 8 monster like Trade-In does, it's still worth it, even if you are playing Zaborg, because you're not going to banish all 3 Heralds very consistently with Extravagance. So I think even sending 1 Herald of Zaborg is actually really good. 1 Omega, sometimes you need to send one of your monster's problematic cards in the graveyard back to their extra deck, because there are cards like Bailings or some other annoying graveyard effects that you need to get rid of before you actually try to OTK. So that's why Omega is a good one. Of course, it's limited. That's why you would play more than one if it wasn't. And 3 NTSS, because you can completely obliterate boards with Zaborg. If Zaborg goes through going second, I don't see a reason why you would lose that game, because you get to pop 3 cards on your opponent's field, you get 3 searches, and you get to bounce a monster from the graveyard back into the deck. So you can have a free way of destroying your opponent with your Chaos Max. And of course, some XCs, again, these do not come up too often, but since the extra deck exists, they're just there just to make sure that you can counter some scenarios. But the most important package, I think, is the Galaxy package. So we have 1 Cypher Dragon. Again, all these need 2 level 8 monsters to be summoned. Galaxy Ice Cypher, you can detach 1 material, take control of your opponent's monster. The problem with Cypher is that it's the only monster that can attack directly if you use its effect. So if you actually use its effect, then don't expect to win that turn, unless you have some weird combination of cards. But still, this package is really good at breaking boards, especially post Master Rule 5, because now that you have to clog your extra monster zone with your Cypher, then you can't do anything with a monster you steal. But if you have the Master Rule 5, and you can summon Monaxes on anywhere on the field, then you can rank up the monster you stole with your Galaxy Eye Cypher, because it is treated as a Galaxy Eye Cypher Dragon. The next card is Full Armor. You put this on top of your Cypher, you pop another card on the field, 4K beater, or if you need to pop another card on the field, then you can rank your Galaxy Full Armor into your Cypher Blade, so you can pop another card, and when Cypher Blade is destroyed, it will give you back your Galaxy Eyes from the grave and bring it back on the field, so that's pretty good. And again, all these monsters work really well with each other because they can just clear boards. This deck has so much spot removal that if your opponent doesn't have an inherent way of protecting your field by card effects like ending Girsu, or if you have a Bellings in the grave, then they're going to lose their entire board. And the rest of the cards are basically some kind of control cards, and in case your opponent forces you to go first, then you need to be able to do something, especially if you know that they're playing a deck that they have an easy out to Chaos Max like Orcust, then it's not optimal to leave a Chaos Max on the field because that's not going to do anything against that deck. So that's why you need to be able to bring out these Xyz monsters in order to be able to survive a turn and get your turn back so you can potentially OTK during the next turn. So we have 138. Against some spell decks, this card can actually, if you hit their choke point, then they can actually end their turn and give you the turn you need to go for damage. 1 Sonofond. There are some matchups where Sonofond is completely insane. Like, if you're resolving this card, means that your opponent won't be able to do anything. And the fact that it can't be destroyed by card effects, and it also gains attack and defense for each monster in the graveyards, makes it so resilient sometimes that you can potentially get it to stay on the field and get it back to your turn, so you can use the effect again to make sure that your opponent won't be able to play again. And this effect doesn't hurt you at all. You never summon anything from your graveyard, because I don't play any cards like Return of the Dragon Lords, Monster Reborn, or Sealer's Cry. So that's why I think Xenophon is a really good card. And again, another 3-card package. This is actually a really good 3-card package. Not as good as the Galaxy Eyes, but still pretty good. We have 1 Lancelot. Lancelot can steal that game sometimes with the ability to attack directly. Pretty good card, negates everything. Unfortunately, the negate is mandatory, so if your opponent knows how to play against this, they can actually use their first effect with the effect they don't want to resolve, and then you're forced to negate it. But if you don't want the direct attack with the Lancelot, you can actually rank it up into Pain Gainer, and there are some fields that Pain Gainer can completely destroy, because by detaching a material, you destroy anything your opponent has with less attack than this card's defense, and pretty much then you can destroy their entire board again if they don't have a way to protect their field, and you can overlay your Pain Gainer into your 7 Sins. Unfortunately, 7 Sins can't use its effect the turn is ranked up, because that would be really good, but you can detach 2 materials, banish your opponent's whole special summon board, and then attach one of those banished monsters to it. But again, 4000 beater, it has the ability to protect itself by battle or card effect, when be destroyed by battle or card effect by detaching a material. So again, very resilient monster, and there are some decks that have a very big trouble to deal with some monsters like this. So yep, That's it, guys. I hope you really like this version because I think it's way more fun than playing actual Blue Eyes. I know it's not the optimal way to play the deck, but it's still a Blue Eyes deck, so you want to have the most amount of fun with it. So, yep, comment down below if you would make any changes to the deck. If you think I've missed anything good that could be a part of the deck, if there are some other cards that could potentially give your opponent's monsters, then I would really like to know about them. And like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and we'll see you next time.